What's up guys, it's your host Spartanic Arts DxD back with another high school DxD related video. And today we have What If Issei Was Overpowered Part 10. Once again, let's try to hit 500 to 600 likes for this video. If you guys want to know exactly when I upload, such my upload schedule, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button. Seriously, thank you so much for all my newcomers into Limit Breaker. I can't thank you enough. It's only about $3 a month, and I tell you about 2 days or a day in advance of when I upload, just so you guys know when it's coming out. I probably might start a Patreon so I can upload the videos also 2 days before. So thank you so much for the support. It's been absolutely amazing. I can't thank you enough. And without further ado, let's go ahead and thank our balance breakers. Rob the King, Lachlan Yates, Atomic Warlord 58, Crumbling Darkness Sphere, Mr. Wolf, Aunt Lewis, The Beast YT3, Shade Fox, VRWolf #2347, Jordan Patchow, Mazaku, Dr_MLG_ is the bomb, Asimodus, Grimfireshot Gamer, and Brandon Lieutenant Riley. Thank you so much for becoming a balance breaker, which is the highest membership tier. So, once again, I'll probably end up doing a live stream sooner or later. Next week, most likely, I'll put it out on my community page of what it is. And remember, I have a Dragon Ball What If channel where I will hopefully be uploading today or tomorrow a video. If that falls through, I'll just let you know in the community tab. And without further ado, oh, it's in the description down below, by the way, my Dragon Ball channel. And without further ado, Spartanic Arts DxD Overpowered 10. Chapter 28. Everything's failing. Azazel and Michael were stunned at what they saw. Ajuka was defeated even when he was serious against Sir Zex in a quicker time than they initially thought, but he had done more damage than they had thought as well. Ajuka's plan wasn't to defeat Sir Zex. He knew that he wouldn't be able to defeat the woman. He knew that Sir Zex's humanoid destruction form was nearly impossible to stop unless you were to overwhelm her embodiment form. That's why he was trying his best to fatigue Sir Zex as much as possible while stalling for time. For that, he was needed to use his Kakara formula, which would have been highly effective against Sir Zex if she would have used her magical power of destruction. But she used her physical might combined with her humanoid destruction form, which made her seem as if she was the embodiment of destruction. Michael and Azazel knew that Ajuka was trying to do, which was why they had to put all into their attack while they were planning on using. Ajuka knew that Michael and the other angels, combined with Azazel and his fallen angel comrades, would be able to do far better on the offense than he would be able to due to the natural physics of angels and fallen angels having the advantage with their magic being far more effective against devils. Everyone, is everything ready? Michael says. Michael asked while beginning to grip a massive sphere, of which they created. Gabriel was the first to respond to her older brother. Ready, Gabriel said. Raphael was worried that they didn't have enough power to handle the woman in front of them, but seeing this was their only option, he decided to agree upon the sphere and beg their deceased father to somehow save them. Ready? Raphael said. Uriel easily, seeing that it was the odd one of the serfs, quickly agreed with his brothers and sisters. Ready, Uriel said. Aim now. Shoot the beam while she's not paying attention, Azazel said. With all this might, Azazel grabbed the massive light spear of truth which they have created. They named the spear for some reason. Blame that for Gabriel. This is the might of the angels, Azazel said. Azazel watched as Sir Zex began slowly coughing up some blood. Perfectly aligning himself, Azazel finally threw the football-sized light spear straight towards Sir Zex. They were expecting the best. Seeing as though the light spear wasn't showing any resistance, it was going straight towards the Devil Queen. Gabriel and Raphael began forming smaller light spears when comparing to it the light spear of truth and began throwing them towards the Devil Queen. Sir Zex watched towards her as a bright light began approaching her. Still being controlled by her rage, she quickly began lifting herself from the pain she was experiencing and began shifting her attention towards the spear that was approaching her at great speeds. Slowly, she began lifting her spear, while the ground began trembling once more. Puny spear, Sir Zex says. Using her magic reserve, she begins slowly condensing a power of destruction, the amount that she wanted to use, into her hand, beginning to draw out the magic the edge hid within different parts of her body into her hands, causing the small ball of destruction to begin shaking the ground while changing the pressure in the area. The sheer destruction that awaited for whatever poor being that would come in contact with the ball would be brutal. Pointing the ball towards the light sphere, she quickly began smirking with even more killer intent, kind of like how Broly is. Before creation, comes destruction, Sir Zex finishes. This small little ball of destruction that he had begun floating towards the massive light spear. Everyone became anxious. All the little weaker beings were already knocked out by the pressure being released by Sir Zex from the very beginning. Once the ball connected with the light spear, the ball easily increased in its size by 1,000-fold. The light sphere that all feathered angels put their energy into was beginning to be pushed back. Sir Zek's pure offensive power was beginning to destroy the might of heaven and the fallen angels. Slowly, the hope of winning was dwindling. "Everyone, push!" Michael said. Michael tried his best to maintain the force being applied to him from the shockwaves. However, Gabriel and Raphael stood by his side and began pushing with even more might. "This was my mess. I will take responsibility," Azazel says. Azazel raised his hands into the air, waiting for something to come into his hands. Slowly, something began rising from the debris on the ground. The artificial sacred gear Azazel had created beginning to finally reach Azazel. Being placed into his hand, Azazel immediately screamed, "Downfall Dragon, another armor!" Fafnir, "You and I are going to have a long and detailed chat after this if we live," Azazel says. Azazel, with a massive power boost, was easily able to push Michael and Gabriel. To ensure that the mess would finally be able to rest, Sir Zex decided to push even more, forcing the ball to grow even larger than before, pushing everyone back. This was the power of Sir Zex, the power of the current Lucifer when going berserk because of her instability of power and mental strength. Slowly, their hope was dying. They began losing the might that they had. However, a new being had appeared. "I won't let you hurt my Sochan, even if I must hurt you, Sir Zex," Seraphal said. From the energy signal that she was able to sense, thanks to the barrier being broken, Seraphal was finally able to appear. Seeing the struggle between the two sides, she finally began helping the angels to deal with this mess. She knew that Sir Zex was going berserk from the odd behavior behind her actions. Sir Zex would never purposely destroy the angels, knowing that another faction would bring the devastation of the entire supernatural world. Seraphal quickly took note of the defeated Ajuka, who was being flung across the sky from shockwaves that were being created between the two sides. "Seraphal, hurry up, we need your help. Sir Zex has gone berserk. The details will be explained after surviving this," Azazel said. Without any further hesitation, Seraphal began injecting her demonic energy into a light sphere, using the magic into creating condensed ice that would be able to push the light spears towards Sir Zex. Now, the struggle was still in Sir Zex's favor, though the resistance between the two increased, allowing for the other side to last a little longer. "Am I too late to something?" Pyamine said. "Lord Azazel, we came as fast as we could after hearing your message," Barkil replied. Two other powerful presences appeared beside the group. Pyamine and a beautiful woman with long purple hair and breasts that made Seraphal envy her had finally appeared and saw the situation. Seeing the side Azazel was on, she immediately went beside the man and she trusted the most and started placing her utmost magical abilities into the attack the other six were doing. Barkil was already at the stage. With three powerful presences, they were able to finally create a balance between the two sides, stopping the movement of the struggle between the massive light sphere and the massive ball of destruction. "We need more power, everyone. Everything is on the line. No matter what we have done, this situation was inevitably going to happen between the three factions. We mustn't kill the woman, for she is the current Lucifer. But if the situation becomes grand, then we must do what we have to keep the equilibrium," Michael finishes. Michael spoke knowing that many of their doubts about the situation from them could be avoided if they were to leave the situation alone without interfering. However, Michael knew that the curiosity and the fear that they held for the power of this magnitude was inevitably going to bring them together to fight the woman. The doubt that the other leaders had was still there, but they had to agree that Michael spoke the truth. "So, fight like your life depends on it. We need to put all of our strength into this. We must protect our people," Michael finishes. Michael began putting in even beyond his limit. The rest of the angels, seeing his older brother putting it all into the battle, hearing that speech their brother gave, even if it wasn't that motivational, began placing all of their energy to follow what Michael had said. Over time, Falbum had appeared and began helping with the struggle. Nearly all of the faction leaders replaced them all into this, beginning to even push back the ball of destruction. "Damn it, Sir Zex, what the hell do you think Issei would say if he were to see this? What type of person do you want to be seeing Issei?" Grafia finished. Grafia finally appeared beside Seraphal and began using the magic that was bestowed upon her for being a Lucifage, beginning to use the same amount of power that Seraphal was using. This was the power of a Satan-class being. Grafia knew that even with all the beginnings on this side, they were short of one Satan-class being to actually begin to overpower Sir Zex. Seraphal smiled smiled once seeing Grafia. Being rivals in the underworld for being the second strongest female in the underworld, but both of them knew that they could smack talk after the entire commotion in front of them. Surzex obviously didn't want whatever Grafia Lucifer had to say to her. She began noticing that her ball of destruction completely stopped moving forward. Surzex saw this and continued blasting even more balls of destruction. The ball began expanding in size, beginning to destroy the ground beneath. There was no chance the faction leaders had against the power of Surzex held. Surzex was just built different. Damn it all, Falbium said. They all began losing to the ground surface, which they were standing on was beginning to disintegrate from the heat and pressure coming from Surzex's ball of destruction. No, Zosan, your big sister will make sure to save you, Seraphal said. Seraphal began freezing the surface around her, restrict her movement. She made sure that it wouldn't affect the others around her. However, the ice began melting from the heat. Come on, Surzex, wake up. Notice what you're doing. Damn it, Issei, we need you right now, Grafia said. Grafia was beginning to lose hope. The emotionless facade that was usually shown in public was beginning to fade away and began replacing with a facial expression of fear and worry. Hope was beginning to dwindle. They needed a Juka. They needed the father of the Paraj pieces in the underworld. Scene change. A man was seen and sensing all the commotion that was happening in the city. Filled with devils, the man was smiling when sensing the current Lucifer finally beginning to go berserk. The man had long silver hair running down his shoulder while wearing heavy armor to show his status amongst the people, having a small beard beginning to run down, known for the genocide that he had created during the Devil Civil War. That man was Rizavim. So, dear Lucy, so you finally decided to snap after the many years under pressure of being Lucifer, Rizavim said. The man smiled, once sending the many faction leaders trying their best to deal with the current Lucifer. Rizavim knew that if he joined the fight after the commotion was over, whether it be Surzex one or the faction leaders, he would be massacred in seconds due to the faction leaders potentially already have called for more backup. This is something to take note of. Was it the boy that caused her to go berserk? Was it the pressure alone? This is something that will be very important in the future to my utopia, Rizavim said. Rizavim decided to lift himself to his feet. Walking towards the door behind him, he was going to manipulate Lucifer and make sure that he, the current Beelzebub, was also the will to lose the fight. He was considered a physiological maniac, and he was proud of it. He was going to make sure to use his mother Lilith to continue his plan in destroying the world. Tell them, Elucid, to finally begin the experiment with the duplicate versions of many sacred gears that he has. And that is the end of chapter 28. Everything's failing. Chapter 29. The group was beginning to lose ground. They were all beginning to feel the pressure beginning to increase upon them, seeing the massive ball approaching them at a quick pace. However, someone had finally appeared, someone that they never thought would have appeared. The man was disappointed in seeing the massive struggle happening. Here I thought I had done my job, but I thought wrong, Ajuka said. Ajuka stood beside the group, shaking from pain that he was experiencing. Blood was dripping from all sides, while Ajuka continuously began pushing over even more power, using Kakara's formula into expanding upon the light spear they all created. Michael was shocked in seeing the super devil appearing, helping them, but he began smiling, seeing the only person that he could bring them hope finally appearing beside them. I knew that you weren't going out with just that battle. It's the reason why we call you a super devil. You're built different compared to the rest of us, Azazel says. Azazel was smirking when seeing the persistent devil preserving through the pain and wanting the best friend of Surzex in the factions. This was one of the true and only heroes of the devil faction, if not all of the factions. Seraphal was beginning to worry when seeing the other besties in such a critical condition. Ajuka, what the hell happened to you? Seraphal said. Ajuka simply looked at the woman and stated 3 words and gave the message to all those who had arrived after the fight. Creation versus destruction, Ajuka said. With those words, all of those in the area finally fell silent. Ajuka looked to the sea, were finally beginning to slowly the massive ball of destruction from approaching them. Ajuka was exhausted and destroyed. If it were to have been at its peak, then he could easily have destroyed this attack with relative ease. We need your utmost help, Lord Ajuka, Grafia says. Grafia placed to Ajuka, nodding his head, and began continuing to increase the power onto the light spear. Ajuka finally began placing in all of his own magic into the light spear. Finally, they stopped the ball. Surzex was beginning to push with all of her power, but Ajuka simply began using Kakara's formula to the uppermost and countered her energy output with his own. The ball began expanding with the light spear, but that had reached a specific point until, boom! The ball exploded, releasing the energy from both of the attacks. Everyone had to cover their eye from the sheer pressure and light being released from the explosion. Finally, the barrier that the leaders had been sustaining during the beam struggle and the massive fight between the two strongest super devils, once the smoke cleared, it was revealed the faction leaders. All of them were knocked out from the huge explosion. They were all able to shield themselves from the explosion. However, Sirzex, who was on the other side, was seen laying down beside Issei. She was still conscious since her super devil state had taken most of the brute force of the explosion. Issei, I'm sorry for all that has happened, Sirzex said, beginning to wrap rounds around the smaller boy. She was still quite a bit taller than Issei. She was able to entirely wrap her body around Issei. Maybe, finally, I could tell the truth to you after your entire revenge, Sirzex says. Sirzex smiled, not remembering anything beside her losing control, but she couldn't remember all that occurred while she was in her berserker state. She didn't know that she had done what she had done besides staring at a select group of individuals, slowly began to lower her head onto Issei's chest and finally began snoozing. The blast had knocked her out of her super devil form that she was able to land beside Issei, who was still having Dreg healing his body and sustaining the blood lost. Time skip. The entire commotion had finally come to a conclusion. All the faction leaders were fighting against the one and only Lucifer. However, after the faction leaders were all knocked out from the massive explosions, the reinforcements had finally arrived. What happened here? Griselda said. One of the most trusted women in the church had arrived to see all of the great seraphs and church duo knocked out into the ground, with the fallen angel leaders and devil faction leaders. The woman walked up to see what happened, seeing as though another faction leader, another devil were across the current faction leaders that see once arriving. Before anything could happen, the White Dragon Emperor had arrived at the battle scene with pain surging through his body. Volley was the one-shotted by the current Red Dragon Emperor and was wanting to fight the devil once more, but Sire Org also arrived. Azazel, what the hell happened here? Volley said. Volley noticed his adopted father figure from the ground with some bruises, and he was unconscious, which alerted Volley immediately to take the situation in front of him seriously. Griselda, being the holy woman that didn't know much about the archangels, were holding away from the church people. She was immediately taking this cursed word seriously. She instantly whipped her head towards the white dragon-haired boy and scolded him. Language, dragon boy, Griselda said. Volley retorted in an even more violent tone to the holy women. Quickly glaring at the women, Griselda raised her eyes in amusement, seeing the devil boy beginning to speak with her. Shut it, wannabe Gabriel, Volley said. Says the one holding on to his gut while trying his best to look tough, Griselda said. Shut it, woman. I'll still wreck you in this battle in this position, Volley said. Volley tried to move at a sudden pace, but he quickly bent over from the pain. Griselda chuckled when seeing the boy proving her point. It was adorable that the boy thought that he could defeat her in his current condition. She quickly went over to him and began petting his head, one of the most disrespectful ways of greeting a prideful dragon. Volley was trying his best to contain the rage and uncomfortable feeling that he was suppressing to make sure that he wouldn't get into a fight with any of them. I'm guessing that a battle occurred, Griselda said. No shit, Sherlock. What I want to know is where's the rumored rogue fallen catchphrase, Sire Org said. Once hearing the question and knowing the past of the answer, Volley began unconsciously saying the truth out loud that caught both the holy church woman and the second youngster in the underworld. The current Red Dragon Emperor had annihilated him with one of the old faction leaders, Volley said. Sire Org was shocked once hearing the news of not only the Satan-class being, but two Satan-class beings were taken out by the current Red Dragon Emperor. There was no way, even with his own balance breaker form, would he even be able to defeat the current Red Dragon Emperor if the statement were true. However, there was still something that Sire was confused about. Wait, how do you know about all of that? You just had arrived, Sire said. I was here way before watching everything happening, but some circumstances occurred and I was forcibly knocked far away and taking some severe damage. Volley spoke truthfully. Volley truthfully spoke, knowing that he was no match for anyone in the area at his injury that the current Red Dragon Emperor had gave him in a singular punch that had changed the weather. It appears that the weather must have changed again from a huge energy surge, potentially by a huge explosion. Sire Org, luckily, wasn't one to hold grudges on the others because of a race. He was usually just wanting to fight strong opponents. Walking towards his older cousin, who was laying on another boy that was severely damaged, Sire Org watched the two massive smirks on his face. These two look like a great couple, I could already tell. I have to take a picture of these two to give them to Helena, Sire Org said. Sire Org quickly was able to pull out a magic circle and take a picture of the two in front of him and sent the picture to Helena before finally able to lift the two. Griselda did the same people while Volley tried his best into lifting all of those from the fallen angel faction. Dragon Boy needs some help there, Griselda said. Griselda sincerely spoke, seeing the boy beginning to struggle lifting the 3 fallen angel on his back. The same back that was in pain. Volley, being the prideful devil and dragon that he was, turned towards the woman with a facial expression filled with anger and annoyance. "Shut it," Volley said. "Nope," Griselda replied. The woman quickly began helping the boy. Scene change. "Elucid, how's the experiment been coming along?" Rizavim said. After sensing the commotion being dealt with, Rizavim was containing all of the frustration of knowing that Serzex was even more powerful than before. Elucid was seen in his laboratory beginning to manipulate the many pieces of technology filled with magic that he had on display. He quickly looked at Rizavim. Seeing him brought a smile to his face, and quickly responded in a cheerful tone. "Everything is going according to plan. It appeared as if I was able to make replicas of the Downfall Dragon Spear. It won't be much time before we are able to deal with Serzex and Ajuka," Elucid said. Rizavim was excited to hear that. He quickly responded in his cheerful tone. His plan of destroying the world in his name was coming together. "Perfect. We might have some evil dragons replicas. It appears as if the current Red Dragon Emperor is a monster in strength," Rizavim said. Elucid was also thinking about what to do with the current Red Dragon Emperor. He could easily sense what was happening with Shalba and was disappointed knowing that Shalba had failed. He thought of that idea could work and quickly spoke. "Just give one to Crom and have him, with support, fight against Serzex. If we can take her away, then everything will come down easy," Elucid said. Rizavim, hearing the idea, finally decided to let loose at all the pent-up rage, beginning to express when he thought of Serzex about the plan that Elucid was giving, which Rizavim wasn't bad, but it wouldn't work because of Serzex and Ajuka. "But it isn't that simple. Serzex is built different. I have seen her true strength on the battlefield once, and I have seen her massacre my people. She has the might of all the faction leaders combined, even Ajuka mixed in there as well. We must use brute strength with our numbers and even stand a chance against her. We aren't Shiva. We aren't dragon gods. We are just devils that are beneath that woman," Rizavim said. Rizavim finally decided to cool down. "Keep trying. Leave Serzex and Ajuka to me. I'll deal with them. I want you, the only man I could trust to destroy the rest of the biblical factions," Rizavim finished. Elucid nodded, with a sadistic smile. Rizavim walked away, knowing that things were looking good for them. Everything was coming together. Orphis was just unaware of what she had triggered inside of Rizavim. She had triggered a new thought that would bring the doom to the world. And that is the end of Chapter 29. Chapter 30. After the entire commotion, the faction leaders were taken back to their main places by their subordinates, but that was enough time for Rias and her Parage to finally begin gaining their consciousness back. "What the hell happened?" Rias said. Rias was the first one to wake up. She began looking around to see that everyone was gone and they were back in the human world. "Wait, where the hell is my sister, and where the hell is Issei?" Rias replied. Akane was beginning to wake up, beginning to raise herself to her feet before looking straight at Rias, who was perplexed on Issei's and Serzex's disappearance. "Rias, where is Issei?" Akane says. "I don't know. He was here, but," Rias says. Rias was finally beginning to remember her sister releasing a massive pressure that immediately knocked out the significantly inferior to Serzex's own power. "Wait, where's my sister? She released a massive amount of power before she knocked us out," Rias said. Rias began searching through the entire environment for Serzex and Issei until she received a message from her mother through communication circle. "Rias, are you there?" Velena says. Her mother's soothing tone spoke that caught Rias' attention immediately. "Yes, what is it, mother?" Rias says. "I just wanted to tell you that Serzex and the boy, that are in the same area, that you are both perfectly fine. They are being treated to the medication and will be fine," Velena says. Once hearing that, Rias was able to sigh in relief, knowing that her sister and Issei were perfectly fine. "Also, I want you to send you this," Velena says. Velena sent an image through another magic circle that showed Issei being hugged by the knocked out Serzex. "These two, I can already see it. It's like me and your father, brunette with crimson hair. It's just like the opposite gender being together. I can already see it," Velena says. Velena has been waiting for many years for someone to finally catch her eldest daughter's interests. Someone that could actually take care of her daughter. It just appears to be the same man that saved both her daughters. This was perfect. She didn't mind Serzex liking this man. However, Rias was shocked to see her sister hugging Issei like this. Rias has been waiting many years to finally something to make fun of her sister and embarrass her sister. And here it is. The same image that Velena had given Rias was the same image that Rias was going to tease her sister about. Seeing Issei and and how he reacts to things, he was mostly likely not going to care much about this, and her sister was. "Thanks, Mother," Rias says. Rias smirked deviously about the situation in front of her. Wasn't open house coming soon? Oh, Rias was going to take this to the extreme. "Daughter, I already know you want to tease your big sister. Don't worry, I also will be open house, and we'll both do it," Felena says. "Perfect, I'll remind my Paraj about this," Rias says. "I'll show this to your father," Felena replies. Felena and Rias say, "Perfect." And the mother and daughter combo was going to make sure that Sir Zex was going to get embarrassed during the open house while making sure they became a couple. Time skip. "Partner, wake up," Drake says. Issei was having a dream filled with not a single instance of school or homework. A dream that he was enjoying. He was eating some food while catching some random anime that he dreamt of. "Crap, I forgot you're still in a coma state. Issei, bring Issei into the mental mindscape," Drake says. "Got it, Big Red." Issei was quickly dragged to the mindscape where he both saw Issei and Drake. Issei leaped towards Issei, dodging the woman due to her first instinct being to dodge. However, Issei was prepared for such a thing and bounced straight towards Issei, which caught him off guard. "Do you know how worried both of us were? Seeing this in the state, we couldn't contact you. No, we're in a stable state," Issei said. Issei vividly remembered some of the parts when he entered the berserker form. He felt as if he was brutally killing Machine. Seeing the woman in front of him beginning to tear up, there was something about the supernatural woman and them being extremely emotional. Probably had to do with them sending one's entertainment after many centuries of them living. Issei sighed and began patting the woman on the head, something that he learned worked on the others when he used to watch a bunch of anime. Simply dismissing Alicia's concern, Issei walked towards Drake, who was eyeing the boy from afar. "Issei Hyodo, the man who has done many impossible things during his lifetime, becoming an evil dragon, surviving the Juggernaut Drive, mutating the Juggernaut Drive form, and also making another form of the Juggernaut Drive from which is safer but still harmful. How many records must you smash? In that new form of yours, you're easily the strongest Red Dragon Emperor, but how many times must you make us worry about your injuries? You single-handedly are the Dragon Emperor with the most injuries and the most instances of being in the near life or death circumstances," Drake said. Issei could tell that Drake was concerned, angered, and even beginning to show some emotions for Issei. It was something that Issei wasn't expecting, since Drake would usually be either grumpy, angered, or sarcastic with him. Hearing this side of him, Issei could tell that Drake was a true tsundere. Drake sighed, knowing that from many hosts and many tales that he had heard, Issei wasn't going to listen to whatever advice he had. "Partner, you and I both know that the injuries that I sustained currently were inevitable. It was either die or have no chance to survive in exchange for some permanent damage," Issei said. "I know that you're right about that. However, what about the instances beforehand? What about the instances when fighting Sir Zex?" Drake said. "How do you want me to grow stronger when I can't even put myself into situations to adapt?" Issei says. Drake looked at Issei and knew that he was mostly saying the truth. The injuries that Issei sustains in such battle that he is deadly, but they were injuries that the strongest beings would be concerned about their life, but Issei just effortlessly preserved through the pain and fought through his heart's content. "Anyway, it's still great to have you, partner," Drake said. Issei began fading away once more to the real world. He looked at Drake and he knew the time to see what had happened was finally here. Time skip. After opening his eyes, Issei was met with a bright light piercing straight through the window adjacent to him and impacting upon his eyes, forcing him to close them. Fluttering his eyes open, Issei slowly felt the breeze of someone breathing, while also feeling as if the same person was on top of him. Finally, getting his senses back, Issei could see Sir Zex, with many bandages around her body, sleeping on top of him. He didn't mind it, since the woman would frequently do this when they would be sleeping in her house, but seeing her injured was something that Issei didn't expect. She was easily the strongest person that he knew, even stronger than Drake at his best, and seeing her injured kind of worried Issei. "Drake, why the hell is Sir Zex injured? What happened while I was knocked out?" Issei said. Drake didn't respond. He wasn't sure if his partner was in the best state to be told the information about Sir Zex going berserk when seeing his critical state. Meanwhile, Issei was checking the environment around them. Seeing it as though they were on Sir Zex's bed, someone must have brought them here. Creak! The door gently began opening to reveal someone with gray hair entering the room. Gravy had entered the room in her maid dress, walking towards the two. She was shocked when seeing Issei finally awake. She bolted straight towards Issei and began checking if he was actually awake, beginning to touch his face, and she realized that Issei was actually alive and awake, with some injuries that were still visible on his body. You're actually alive, Grafia says. She screamed with happiness, shock, and sheer excitement in seeing the boy alive, beginning to hug the boy. Issei was shocked in seeing that the way the woman was acting around him. Grafia was beginning to slightly tear up. Issei didn't know that Grafia thought of Issei as a child that she told herself to take care of the moment he entered the Lucifer household. That was the reason why Grafia was so caring to Issei and showed more emotions than she usually does. I must tell the others, Grafia says. Grafia ran out of the room as quickly as she could, while Issei was left perplexed with everything that just happened. What the hell just happened? Also, why does my body feel so tired? Issei says. So, you finally realize that your body has still sustained injuries that are being treated by Issei. Also, I suggest not doing anything physically hard during this state because it might result in even more permanent damage to your body, Drake said. Makes sense, Drake. Tell me more about this berserker form. It seems bizarre that this form is still weaker yet harmful to the Juggernaut drive, Issei says. Partner. All the sacred gears in the supernatural world can be mutated depending on the host's emotions and desire. Something that I have already told you before. However, the Parage pieces have somehow been able to mutate the boosted gear, which is why Ajuka was able to state that you had an important piece within you. The raw anger, the raw negative emotions, your evil dragon side, and the Parage pieces all began mutating the queen form of your illegally Triana transformation. This resulted in the berserker form. That's cool. It appears as if the form will be able to last-ditch effort because of the harmful damage that is done to my body, Issei says. Drake huffed in agreement, with the form being too dangerous to just casually use. That was when Issei began feeling some shifts in the bed sheets to see Issei looking straight at him. She slowly began smiling while hugging him. It's great to see you awake, Issei says. She began hugging even tighter grip, which was beginning to cause some of the sensitive bones that Issei currently had to begin feeling some massive amount of pain. It's great to see you as well, however. How did you even get these bruises? These don't look like little bruises either, Issei said. Issei began gently caressing the smaller bruises that Issei had, causing the woman to blush in embarrassment hearing that Issei cared enough for her to ask about her well-being, and was asking her about what happened. What Issei didn't know is that the entire week had passed since he entered the berserker state, while Issei woke up later that incident. During the time, Issei was being taken care of by Issei. She was making sure that Issei wouldn't leave her sight, knowing the supernatural world would easily want to take away Issei for experimental purposes or just greed. During the time, Issei made sure that Issei wouldn't have to go to school for a month and made sure some excuse he was in critical condition and that she would teach him everything herself, which she no nay hell was doing. Well, you know, when you were on the ground nearly dead after fighting against Kokaville and Shalba, I may have finally snapped, and it took all of the faction leaders to bring my common sense back, Issei says. She was putting it lightly about her situation. She didn't want to worry Issei about the fact that the job Lucifer was straining her mind with the massive pressure that it applied because of her fear of failing the people. That wasn't necessary because Issei immediately wrapped his arms around her, shocking her by the way he was acting. Usually he would just pat her on the head. Don't worry, I'm still alive and healthy, a simple bruise. And injuries isn't going to stop this evil dragon from fighting, Issei says. You know, you're careless and naive. However, it's what makes you so unique and charming at times. Come here, you overgrown baby. Hey, you're the child, Issei says. And he couldn't finish whatever he was going to say because Issei hugged him once more. The woman was clearly worried about his health and blaming herself for a condition. She was stressing that Issei would die, and she would have broken the promise that she told herself about protecting Issei. However, Issei was the one protecting her during this entire time that she stayed at Issei's home. This is what made Issei seem like the perfect man for Issei because he would be there for the woman. He'd be there to help the woman. He was there to support the woman with her decisions. And he would frequently do his own things for the best of both of them. Issei was just a man who was willing to help those he could trust, that being only a few people such as Issei and Grafia. Scene change. So, that was Issei Hyodo, the same man that has taken the heart of Issei. Is that what you're saying? Serval said. Yep, it's quite evident that Issei was having feelings for the boy. She would always hug him, caress him, and sometimes take advantage of his unconscious form, Grafia said. Serval was the only person that Grafia would usually speak with when wanting to deal with problems that Issei would have. What better way of dealing with her childish antics than ask for another childish person? Serval looked at Grafia with her small magic wand in her hand, and she smirked and began twirling her hand around in the air, before pointing straight at Grafia. You did say that he defeated both Kokaville with his sacred gear and Shalba at his strongest, Serval said. Grafia nodded about the statement that Serval had said. That's good, because if Sir Zex were to show her likings towards Issei, more like love for him, then that alone would bring a bad view on her. It's reason why I, Ajuka, and Falbrim fear getting into a romantic instance with people because of the potential bad view the people would have on us. The moment that the people begin losing faith in us will result in another Devil Civil War. It would be perfect time for Rizavim to come back. Since Sir Zex and I are close friends, I'll help her out. We have enough evidence and enough reason to finally promote Issei Hyodo. Grafia smiled at once hearing that. Her king needed someone to help her during this time. She needed someone that could help her handle the pressure of being Lucifer. The person was easily Issei, and Issei needed someone that could show him happiness after the entire situation with his parents' death and the fear of women. These two were basically just helping each other in a perfect way. She could embarrass Sir Zex later, after she feels better, and she could begin embarrassing Issei into making sure that he would still feel some emotions after turning into an evil dragon. And that is the end of Chapter 30, Aftermath. And that is going to be the end of this video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this little video, and before you leave, I want to know your opinion on something. So, once again, I'm talking about making the little short videos, and I plan on making them like kind of soon. I just want to kind of test it out. I'm just thinking up ideas. These little ones are going to be like little animated, like, my bad, not animated scenes. They're going to be like intense images with like effects and things like that to like see the characters, like so you guys can emotionally get like attached to it basically. And I mean that like so you can actually like feel the emotions that the characters are going through. So when Issei gets angry or something like that, or if Goku gets angry or something like that, you see the lightning come down from the sky and it starts and everything just starts blowing up, you know what I mean? Like the intense effects like that. I kind of want these little projects to like, you know, just be cool, like the intense little like lines and things like that I've done like for the other 3 videos. And for people who keep asking me, Issei the God Killer is Born is part 3 of What If Issei Was Trapped in the Dimensional Gap. So I told you guys I'm going to start titling things that I want them to title. So like if something significant happens like Issei versus Hades, that's going to be in the title of the next part, just a hint of what's going to happen. So that's basically it. And then what if Goku was too overpowered? I am like halfway through the page. I'm on page 2 of writing the script right now, and it's pretty fun writing. So I'll be doing it in a little bit. I don't expect that story to come out extremely soon. Just know that I am in the works of it. I already have the thumbnail done as well. It looks really cool. So thank you guys all for your support. If you guys want to see more what ifs on Dragon Ball and things like that, I'll probably post a video to my Aunt Palpowski channel. I'm actually close to 10,000 subscribers on that channel, which is kind of crazy to think about. So thank you so much for the support. Once again, 30K. We're 800 subs away from 30,000 subscribers, so please hit the subscribe button. And if you guys want to join Limit Breaker, just go down the click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button. It's $2.99 a month, and I appreciate you. So without further ado, Spartanic Arts DxD out.